Thank you for returning to Mastering Counseling. We are thrilled today to have Lianna Lindsay with us, who has an amazing practice that goes by mindful healing. And thank you for giving us your time today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, we're glad to have you. And today, her practice is open especially for teenagers and using DBT therapy. So, we're going to explore that in depth and just kind of talk about the type of clients that she's helping and how her practice has grown. So, why don't you go ahead and start us off about where it all began and how you were inspired to start mindful healing?
Yes, so I started my career working in IOP and then residential settings for years. And well, I absolutely loved and would never change my time working in those settings. It was hard seeing kind of the revolving door and feeling like you had such high risk clients and that they would get better, but then be coming back into treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to create a treatment option for teenagers who were high risk or self harming or really struggling with these intense, big emotions
Mm-hmm.
where they could stay long term and you could really see the work where they felt safe and they could get actionable skills and they could be whoever they were. And they could be their weird, sort of spunky and funky selves and get the treatment that they really needed. And that's what mindful healing is all about.
It's amazing. And as you're describing some of the things that teenagers may need, I love your description. I have a couple of my own in my own home. And as you know, most of the population recognizes it is such a time of trial and error and change. And I'm sure people say to you, and I don't really like to say this because I love working with teenagers as well, but I'm sure you sometimes hear, oh, how could you work with that age? It's, such a difficult time. But let's actually talk about that because to me, it's such a special time and I'm sure you definitely value. But what would you say would surprise people about how amazing that group of kids are?
Um, I think actually how resilient teenagers are.
Mm.
I think a lot of the population thinks of teens and especially this generation as not being very resilient. But I think that they are facing much bigger challenges than our generation faced in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of the discussion around teenagers today is that they don't have any challenges, that they haven't faced hard times, that everything is just kind of handed to them on a plate. And, I think there's like in DBT, there's a real dialectic to that. Well, we have a lot of privileges growing up in the world of technology and they have a lot of access to information. Growing up as the first generation entirely on smart technology
Mhm.
is also a lot of challenges.
Mhm.
And I think there's hidden sort of resilience in working with teenagers. And a lot of what makes working with them very challenging and why not everybody wants to work with teenagers is also what makes them such a wonderful population to work with. They are resilient and they are kind of fierce, sometimes a little oppositional and stubborn.
Mhm.
But that stubborn kind of nature is also what inspires them to kind of keep going and find their independence and find who they are. And, I just love working with teens. I wouldn't really want to work with any other population.
Mhm. I love that perspective. And yes, definitely resilient. And you make a good point of they're blazing the trail and we're, doing all the things wrong, raising them in the first generation of technology and finding all the balances and how it's helpful, how it maybe hurt them. But that's definitely a great approach that their challenges may not feel as physical maybe as like people in the past, but like their mind going all the time and how we often hear, you know, if there were issues at school with other kids, you could forget about it at home. And now it's so much, with social media and all of that, that they can't always unplug, which has its challenges for sure. So thank you for sharing that perspective. Let's go back a little bit to the start of your practice. How long did you make the shift into it? And where did you think of the name? And what does your practice look like? And I definitely want to talk about the groups you run too, because I saw that on your website as well.
The name just, comes from how important mindfulness is to me and to DBT in particular, because we are a DBT practice and I love DBT and I find it very effective in working with teens. And so since mindfulness is, the foundational skill set, it just kind of felt right to be mindful healing, that's part of, what is essential healing aspect of what we do.
I kind of started just rolling with all the questions. So yeah, I love always hearing about the names of practices, where they come from. It sounds just like a soothing, calm name. So I appreciate that. And let's talk about DBT in specifically how what type of teenager you might be able to help using that approach, and just kind of the breakdown of the actual strategies in a session individually or in a group.
Well, I'm biased, so I think, DBT can help pretty much all teenagers, but specifically, like a comprehensive DBT program is for like big behaviors. So we see a lot of self-harming teenagers, suicidal ideation, angry outbursts, and just really dysregulated emotions, like teens who are kind of like on an emotional roller coaster and feeling like, whether it's their anxiety or their thought process is, bigger than they are and that they can't control that. DBT is really designed for them. The skills in general, if you talk more like DBT informed and kind of just weaving that into individual therapy, I find that helpful with just about any treatment plan.
Mhm.
But a really structured, like comprehensive DBT program is more of the first kind of client with like really big emotions. And when I say comprehensive, that's where they are in DBT skills group, DBT individual therapy, which is very structured, where they're doing like their diary card and reviewing that at the beginning of session, and they're like tracking their target behaviors.
Mm.
And, it's very, very goal oriented. And, they have like access to DBT coaching outside of session. And so it has a strict focus and structure to it.
Mhm. All right, good. In which often we're hearing kids of all ages, that structure, I think, is a huge part of helping them feel comfortable. Even if they resist it a little, I think in the end it ends up being really good. So let's talk about how you would differentiate if a teenager client would need the group or the more individual sessions, or do a lot of them do both, as you kind of mentioned, but kind of talk about what things might be more helpful for them in each category.
It depends on kind of what they're coming in for. So if they are struggling with suicidality and self-injury, they're probably going to go into both. If they are, essentially have high risk behaviors, then we're likely to recommend them to, as I mentioned earlier, we would refer to as like our comprehensive DBT program, because we want to make sure that they're safe and so that they have access to therapy as much as possible, that they're getting the DBT skills, that we're tracking their behaviors. And part of tracking that behavior is that they're not just identifying like triggers, because life has triggers. Like
Right.
those don't go away. Those don't go away when we end therapy successfully. Like life
Right.
is frustrating at times.
Mhm.
That we not only are learning what our triggers are, but we're identifying through that, in DBT, what I called like a diary card, but we're identifying what are our thoughts and our feelings that we're experiencing when we're triggered. And then as we're learning that in individual therapy, we're simultaneously learning in group therapy and in like DBT skills group, the coping skills that line up and match
Okay.
with those different thoughts and feelings. So it's how do I manage, like what skill is appropriate for what type of thought and feeling, and when do I use it. And then in group, it's also giving us a chance to practice with our peers different skills. And in between the sessions, we're practicing and we're talking about that in individual therapy, and we have homework and different things. And so we're really learning that these skills work, and we're tracking that data, and we're seeing maybe last time I experienced this type of feeling or thought or trigger, I had this behavior or this emotion at a level like 9.
Mhm.
And maybe I still had the behavior, or, maybe I still, had an angry outburst, but it lasted, 3 minutes instead of 10 minutes, or
Right.
it took me longer to react than it did in the past.
Mhm.
And it's one of the things I love about tracking. It can feel really tedious and not everybody loves to do it,
Mhm.
but it gives in the end this really concrete data of,
Right.
oh, I didn't realize I was making progress because I still have the feelings and I still have the behavior. And so I didn't feel like I was making progress. But
Mhm.
when we look at the past 2 months and I can see my chart, I am making progress, and I'm seeing, my little color coded app go down.
Mhm.
And then they feel really successful and really motivated to keep going. And those moments, I love to see in session. I love to see their face when they have that like, aha, like, oh, I didn't know.
Right. They probably didn't know how far they could get in making progress. So data is always so helpful. And in this world, in mental health world, sometimes data, it's not as easy as, your math multiplication facts or whatever it is that you're learning. It can be gray. So that's awesome that you can provide that. I know a lot of it is very goal oriented and everything. So would that be like a possible goal someone would have? You mentioned someone feeling success of having an outburst for 3 minutes instead of 10 minutes. Would that be like a goal that they would maybe set? They know they are going to get really angry when X, Y, or Z comes in the room or they're in this environment, but the goal is to shorten the outburst.
The goal might be to shorten it. Typically, our goal is often to eliminate it, depending on what the behavior is. So, like if they're self harming or they have angry outbursts, we're really trying to have them feel in control. So they're not having angry outbursts, that they're learning an effective way to express their anger, or, an effective way to express, whatever's under the surface that's causing them self harm. So we're looking to eliminate self harm. We're
Mhm.
looking to eliminate the angry outburst, not the anger, but
Right.
the outburst.
Yeah.
But as the stepping stones, absolutely.
Mhm.
Let's decrease it. Let's, like those are still successes.
Yeah. I see that the larger goal for sure, and then hoping for that, but knowing it might be the smaller steps. So thank you for clarifying that. What I'd love to hear about is kind of more from your perspective in running the practice, and especially the kids who maybe need group and individual. How do you manage if someone runs a group? Does that mean they see any of those people individually as well? Do you guys partner up or refer out? Talk to us kind of about the structure, especially for people who need the whole comprehensive plan.
So if ideally, if they need like comprehensive DBT, they are staying within our practice because of how structured that is, and the communication is really streamlined that way.
Mhm.
Not everybody needs that comprehensive program. We definitely get referrals for our skills group from individual therapists. We just work on really communicating with them, or vice versa, that we have somebody who's in group and we might refer to an individual therapist outside of our practice as well, or a family therapist outside of our practice.
Okay. Okay. So it kind of changes depending on the needs of the family or the teenager. Okay. And when you say hour, how many people make up mindful healing at this time?
Currently, there is myself, our parent coach, two clinicians. We have our intern starting in the fall.
Oh, cool. Will that be the first time you have an intern or
No, but we haven't had
okay.
one in a while. So,
Okay. Yeah, that's great. A lot of people I talk to on here have had various interns, and usually it's such a positive thing. A lot of them end up working as part of the practice, and it's always fun, right, to train people in what you love to do and then see more people want to do that or at least have that as their starting point. So, cool. Can you talk about the parent coach role a little bit? As I imagine they kind of have a different skill set than the other clinicians.
yes, absolutely. So, our parent coach is actually my mother.
So literally, when you said parent coach, I felt it like is your parent, but I was like, absolutely not. They're just
Oh,
helping.
there's some
But
good intuition
that's
in you.
amazing. Wow.
Yes. And so she has lots of experience on like both sides of that desk. Because my brother and I were pretty difficult teenagers.
This is
And
really hard to imagine, I have to say, in my short time of knowing you, but
oh, good thing this is recorded. I'll be happy to share that with her. She'll get a chuckle.
okay.
Um, she obviously, again, I'm biased, but she is a wonderful parent coach and really guiding the parents through adjusting their approach. Because I think a lot of times, parents are nervous to come in and participate because they're worried that they're going to be blamed.
Mhm.
And, you know, helping them to understand that it's not about blame or it's not about you doing anything wrong. Like, there's no perfect parent.
Mhm.
And sometimes if a teen is struggling, like the family system breaks down. Like what might work before they were depressed or before they were anxious or before they experienced a trauma is not going to work anymore. So your approach may be healthy and appropriate, but it's no longer appropriate for your child.
Mhm.
And then the more you get frustrated with how your teen's reacting, the more that communication system is breaking down. And I think that sometimes parents are very worried about being told that, like, you caused your teen's behavior to be like this. And that's not the case. There's lots of factors. And it's just about shifting, like, how can you change your current approach and how you're responding to your teen that's going to help your teen change their responses to you or their responses at home.
Mhm.
Because they're not in a vacuum.
Right.
They spend, 1 or 2 hours a week in therapy, and they spend, you know, all their time with you, except for when they're at school and sports.
Right.
And, you know, teens may not let their parents know this, but parents matter.
Mhm.
Their parents' opinions matter. Their parents' responses matter. Their parents' approval matters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing that you have that connection there. And I'm a school counselor, and even in elementary, we have to make, the hard calls to parents to say, this is what your child is saying, and they are suicidal, and we need you to have them seen or whatever. And of course, it's a bigger conversation than that. But when to see the grief or surprise, shock, whatever it is the parents are feeling, it's so immense if a child is, caught up in this and struggling so much. And so I'm sure the parents are really glad to have the support and be able to talk it through. Because my experience is a lot of the parents had no idea. And granted, the kids are younger in elementary, and it's the first time they've ever experienced this, and it feels like everything they've done could possibly be wrong. So I think it's awesome that you guys have this as part of a whole family thing. And as you said, we're not living in vacuums, and this affects the entire family structure. So yeah, and that's amazing that your mom, is part of it, and you guys it sounds like you took some of the things you dealt with when you all were younger and are trying to help people maybe do it a little different or at least try some strategies, so very cool. Can you talk about are there some future plans or developments for the practice that you see in the next year or 5 years?
actually that are just getting started. We've just added our ADHD assessments in our school avoidance group that's, starting this fall. And so we're really excited about those. But I think some of our parent programming is expanding. I'm really looking at adding like a DBT group for parents.
Oh,
I spoke about how much I love the, group for the teens and the camaraderie that comes with that and like seeing the skills work from, you know, kids who are further along in the group. And, I love having the parent coaching, but I think being able to offer the camaraderie to the parents as well, to hear from each other. And, in addition to having like their own private space is something that we'd really like to be able to offer.
yeah. That's amazing. Very cool that you're starting with that. And yeah, the school avoidance group, that's a new thing too. And yeah, I don't know exactly what schools you're associated with. I know in the school system I'm a part of, absenteeism is off the charts for many reasons. It's not always some of the kids even want to come and there's other factors, but there are definitely a lot of kids pushing to not come. So I assume you're seeing a lot of that around you.
We are. I mean, obviously, after COVID, the anxiety of like being back in the classroom, like see again, like the dialect, like a lot of people wanted to get out of their house and back in, but a lot of kids went the opposite direction. And the increased like social anxiety and test anxiety spiked. And so helping, those teens, deal with like any safety behaviors that they put in place.
Right. Right. Yeah, whatever, certain grade levels, if you will, the seniors of 2021 or whatever, everyone lost things, but it's like no matter what age you are or how big whatever is supposed to be special that year, everyone lost some things, right? Like the 2-year-olds lost speech, the 1-year-olds lost expression, the 10-year-olds lost, I don't know, gaining their independent, whatever it is, it's like something was lost and then coming back from it. I just think it will be, in my mind, it's always like at least a 10-year thing, I feel like, because there's just so many challenges coming out of that. But I'm glad that you guys are doing that, and I'm sure it will help a lot of kids. Let's talk for a little bit about the kind of behind the scenes of mindful healing, because we love to talk about the business side of practices. How much are you running, the insurance communication, the scheduling, the meetings with the other clinicians and your parent coach? Are you managing all of that? Do you hire that out? Any apps or programs you really like that you would like to talk about?
Okay, so I run significantly less than I used to. Learning to delegate was and is a challenge,
Mhm.
definitely. I do love the business side. Not every therapist does, but I do enjoy it. We are out of network
Okay.
and we work with Thrisers. We use the Thriser app. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Okay.
that. So
I'm not actually.
uh,
No.
speaking of the apps or programs that we like, Thriser is a program that helps you work with out of network benefits, and it
Mhm.
offers different ways so that clients don't have to worry about like submitting the super bill or dealing with appeals or, if understanding the process, or it kind of just takes all of that off their plate. And it helps take a lot of it off our plate. And so we use that and collaborate with Thriser to make out of network billing smoother, ensure that they're getting proper reimbursement, and that is a, seamless process for our clients.
Yes. Okay, very good to know. I like that. And that's good that you are delegating, but I get it. Like if it's your practice and you kind of like knowing more of the behind the scenes and payroll and all of that, I could see how some people would enjoy that. And it seems like you do. So, but I'm glad that you aren't doing all of it because it sounds quite overwhelming.
No, I doubt. So that was a challenge, and learning, when you're first getting started, like when to start delegating and hiring support staff, and and what to delegate first and how to delegate. Those were definitely initial challenges.
Mhm.
The first support staff I hired was my intake coordinator to help me with phones and scheduling,
Gotcha.
which was hard. Like, it was wonderful to let go of and very hard to let go of.
Yeah.
That's the face of your company to the outside world. It's the first point of contact.
Yeah.
Uh,
And oh, go ahead. Keep going.
no,
Oh,
please.
I was gonna say, it's like whenever you hire someone, it's like also finding that you can't read each other's minds at first. So, how much communication do you have to have with them before, you know what I mean? Like, you have to know all of the things, but then how much do you really have to know? And you can just count on them that it's going to happen. This definitely has its challenges, but I'm glad that you're able to do it. What would you want to share with someone who is just about to go out on their own and begin their own practice?
I would encourage them to get a business coach. Um, when I first started my practice, I was really nervous about spending money on my practice to help it grow. And when I got past that fear is when my practice actually started to grow. And when I had the time to really focus on my clients
Mm.
and I was less nervous about the business and I could
Yeah.
be fully present. And things really shifted at that point. And so, you know, that's not an easy anxiety to get past as like a new person in solo practice. But, you know, being able to sort of work on that anxiety and find the right coach for you to help you, because there's so many things you don't know and you don't know what you don't know
Hmm.
about the business side, and specifically the business side of a therapy practice. Like having like someone in your corner who can help walk you through that is, an invaluable tool.
And just curious on that, did you hire someone as a business coach specifically who helped in mental health business, or was it a general business person? Business coach, sorry.
A therapy business coach for a short while. And what was really helpful for me was some of the coaching courses that I took at the time, specific to growing groups and some of the mastermind, like online programs and
Mhm,
like co-working spaces
mhm.
where I could collaborate. I love group work, and so I could hear from therapists who were further along in their practice than me, and have advice from people at different stages in those kind of co-working spaces, and
Right.
that was really important part.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you for giving us the details about that. I was going to ask because you have other clinicians on your staff, at what point was it a business coach, or did you yourself decide I need to hire other people to work with clients? Like, what was that rub that pushed you to be able to do that?
No, I decided, and honestly, I just wanted to do more on the business side,
Mm-hmm.
and something that's very important part of mindful healing is the client care and small caseloads.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I wanted to keep writing the blogs and doing some of the marketing and the ad work and some of that, I wasn't going to be able to maintain a full caseload and
Right.
give them the standard of care that mindful healing markets, like,
Right.
that I was writing in our marketing. I wasn't going to be able to call parents on a regular basis and contact primary care providers and contact the school and things that are in our SOP.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't want to skip out on either end.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's amazing that you recognize that. And absolutely, we have so many ethics in this field, and especially if you're marketing that kind of full practice, and I know you work with the families and not just the teenagers, that it's good that you were able to structure the time and let other people do that amazing work as well. So, yeah. Is there anything else that you'd want us to know about mindful healing that we didn't hear about, or any topics we didn't get to touch on yet today?
I mean, I'm sure I could probably talk about my practice all day long.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, go ahead.
I think those are the overall basics of,
Yeah.
what we offer and
Yeah.
what
We
we like to
didn't
do.
get to talk about how much you're doing online or in person or some of both. So, what is the space situation that you guys are using that works best?
Actually, that is, I should have thought of it. That's super exciting. So we just moved into a new space like
Okay.
2 weeks ago
Oh, wow. Very
uh,
nice.
to expand that. So we outgrew our old space for to have a much larger group room. And so my clinicians can offer in person or online sessions like every day of the week. So they're no longer have to worry about
Oh,
sharing
great.
any office space. And though my parent coach is entirely online.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I had a feeling it maybe was a little both, but I figured the group was in person the way you described it. But that's great. Congratulations on a whole new area. I'm sure everyone is re energized and excited. Everyone always loves new spaces. So, especially when you don't have to share if you were. So, yeah.
So we're really excited about that and having
Yeah.
more space for sessions, more times available.
Right.
So we're
Yeah.
we're very excited about the new office.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. Well, thank you so much, Liana, for giving us your time this afternoon and all the insights that you gave us on DBT and your healing or mindful healing practice.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. I hope you got a better picture of DBT and definitely learned some great insights into starting a practice and how it evolves and changes. Feel free to leave us questions or comments. Have a wonderful day.